guess who is filming in a less than optimal setup because neighbor child has no chill, and I could not film anything in the living room without hearing it screaming on camera. Hey! Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm very excited to film this video today, and I'm willing to do it in a less than optimal setup because today, we are going to be talking about a series that has kind of taken over my life the past couple of months in quarantine. Side note, if you hear random noises like outside, like trucks or whatever, they're doing like yard work and shit. Like, I can't win. Like, I can't escape the fucking ambient noises that are in my world, so I'm sorry. I will do what I can to edit those sounds out. But one thing that I've realized about myself while being in quarantine is that I like ranking things and putting things into lists and making tiers of things, and I feel like I've always kind of been that way. Like, I'm always like, you know, top 10, top 5, top 3, like favorite. Like, I've always been that way, but it's just become more prevalent now that I have like not that much else to do. So I'm just like, okay, I'll just rank things. And recently I made like a little mini series on TikTok where I am ranking characters from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and admittedly I think I kind of was unfair in my rankings because one, I was afraid of the backlash from the community because, oh my god, anime fandoms, no matter where you go, anime fandoms are fucking terrifying. And also, I didn't want to be like unfair to the characters. I wanted to make sure that everybody was like on like a high ground and I think I was letting my love for the show kind of influence my rankings. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll rewatch, you know, the different parts of the show and kind of make like another lighthearted ranking system. And knowing me, lighthearted doesn't exist. What I decided to do was break down the series just like in general and rank the series as a whole, and also rank the main JoJo, the main antagonist, and some of the important supporting characters. Moving forward, there are a lot of like minor characters and it's hard for me to keep track of all of them, so moving forward I'm gonna be very selective about who I rank, so I'm sorry. But part one, there aren't really that many minor characters to kind of really talk about, so that's good. But you know, before I get into that, when it comes to rankings, like I try to be objective, subjective, I try to take into consideration character traits and all that good stuff. But, you know, sometimes, like, I look at my anime husbando or my anime waifu, and they look at me with those big, beautiful eyes, and suddenly I'm just tempted to buy a bunch of merch that I don't need and can't afford, and my wallet is screaming for Mercy. Ooh, Mercy from Overwatch. I wonder if she has any new merch out. Mia? No. Bad. So yeah, during quarantine, I had watched all of the parts that are available. Again, thanks to my friends, Finn and my friend Rob, because they're just kind of like, look, JoJo is, the first part is hard to get through, but just give it a shot. And I'm like, I've given it a shot. Like, before this, I tried watching part 1. I tried starting JoJo, I think 3 times. And each time I could not make it past the 3rd episode. Like, I just couldn't do it. I don't know. Something was stopping me from doing it. And not to appear uncool in front of my internet friends, I was like, you know what? I'll give it a shot again. And I did. And now it has taken over my life, like most things that I get into. I also kind of wanted to give everybody here a more structured video because of the monstrosity that was my Danganronpa and drinking video from last time. I'm a mess, and I'm gonna go off on so many tangents, but I'm gonna try my best to be nice and organized. So here we go. So a little bit of backstory. This style of manga, especially the style of manga and the style of anime, is not what I typically go for. I am a shoujo, slice of life, thriller, horror, very like svelte characters. I also tend to lean more towards like female dominated shows because, you know, anime waifus, etc. So I don't really go for like the very muscular like characters that are in JoJo. And it's funny, I was thinking back on this and I realized when I was in high school, a friend of mine made the like Zawarda, like Roda, like he made that reference a lot. And I'm like, homie, like what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, oh, it's from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And I looked it up. because admittedly I had a humongous crush on him and I wanted to impress him, and I looked up JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and I'm just like, no. Because I don't want to read a manga that has like a dude with biceps bigger than his head. Like, it didn't really appeal to me. So I was just like, oh, okay, read. That was just sort of our thing. Like, we were those kinds of annoying weebs. We would yell "Ree" at each other in the hallways. And like, you know, oh, high school. Oh, what a glorious and cringy time. I kind of remembered that. I'm like, oh yeah, JoJo has just sort of been a thing for a while. I'm gonna be ranking the series as a whole, or like the, you know, the part as a whole, and I'm also gonna be ranking the characters based on their character traits. And again, this is all my opinion. I'm pretty sure the opinions I'm gonna be stating are nothing new, but again, it's my opinion, and I am kind of terrified to post this because, again, anime fandoms fucking terrify me, and thanks to like past trauma and all that other bullshit, I'm afraid to just state my opinion when I fear it'll be different from somebody else's in general. But what do I have to lose? You know, like, I just need to fucking do it. Anyway, moving on. I rewatched the series, so it's like fresh in my brain, and so that I'm not like being biased. Like, if something is not fresh in my brain, I tend to be more biased because I'm just thinking about like all the good things. But I'm like, no, I need to kind of be a bit more critical about the stuff that I like and not just say, oh my god, it's perfect. And also, admittedly, because I am more up to date on the newer seasons, I sort of feel like I would be unfairly ranking the older seasons against the newer seasons, because the newer seasons are like amazing. Point in case. So part one, our main JoJo, we have JoJo Prime, Jonathan Joestar. He is a good boy. He is very dedicated to learning. He is very quick to jump in and help people and to do what's right. He just has like a zest for life. He is very just enthusiastic. Like, he's very friendly, and you know, he's kind of, as like a main protagonist, he is very much so the good guy. Jonathan's fine. Like, he's a good boy, like I mentioned. He's a good guy. He's doing the thing where he's like fighting for all the right reasons. You know, even like when he is getting just like, you know, beaten up by Dio, he's just like, why are you doing this to me? I want us to be friends. And I kind of relate to him at that point, because it's just kind of like, hey, like, why are you being so shitty to me? I just want to be your friend. Like, I just want to like help you out. I respect that, and I really like that about Jonathan. And despite him being kind of middle of the road, like personality wise, originally in my TikTok video I gave him a 10 out of 10 because I'm like, I can't not give him like a good ranking because he's JoJo Prime, like he's the guy who started everything. But like, looking back at him critically and from like, you know, a different viewpoint, I'm like, okay, he's not bad by any stretch, but he's not like the best. So I'm giving him a 6 out of 10, slightly above average, but everybody has to start somewhere. Part one is a good jumping off point for the series because, again, it has like the very defined like good versus evil, like very much so like, I think what makes it different from like another, you know, just run-of-the-mill like shonen manga is that it has like this strange, like this like weird like supernatural thing thrown into it. Like, if it didn't have the supernatural thing thrown into it, I would dismiss it entirely. But like the whole thing with like the Hamon, like the energy, and when I first heard Hamon, I thought Hama from Persona 3, because everything comes back to Persona 3 for me. Like the whole supernatural element of it just makes it so much better and worth getting through part one. Yes, getting through part one was a slog. I'm sorry, but it was a slog. I had to trudge through it. But I do think that Jonathan deserved better. Like, yeah. And then we have Dio, who is our antagonist, and Dio is very much so the bad guy. Like, this whole part, like part one, is very much so like good versus evil. Like, we have the good guy who is righteous and has like virtues and all that good stuff, and then we have Dio, who is like smart and cunning and ruthless and is just an asshole with a huge overinflated ego, who's also a vampire. Yeah, so Dio is I wouldn't say he's like a quintessential villain, but he kind of has like the quintessential villain vibes. Like, he has a very tragic backstory. Like, he was not treated very well. Like, he had like the complete opposite upbringing that Jonathan did. Like, Jonathan was very like nurtured, supported, and like he had like a good family structure, and he had like wealth and comfort, and Dio had none of that. Like, Dio is just very much so just like, he's just not not what Jonathan is. Again, you know, very much so like good versus evil. Like, I am everything that you hate and everything that you do not want to be. Also, I love the fact that season 1 of part 1 has, you know, Kono Dio da, which is like the line that launched 1,000 memes. You can't go anywhere online without seeing a JoJo meme or a JoJo reference. And now that I'm like, you know, hep to the JoJo jive, I recognize all these memes and I'm like, oh my god, they are everywhere. Dio is a 7 out of 10 for me. I originally ranked him as a 9 out of 10, but I'm ranking him as a 7 out of 10. And the reason I'm ranking him a little bit higher than Jonathan is because he's just a really good villain. Like, he has all of like the makeup of like a villain. And I think another reason why I'm ranking him a bit higher is because he's in all of the series. Like, I've only read up to I read up to part 6. Like, I'm halfway through part 6 right now. I'm pretty sure he's like mentioned in like, you know, part 7 and part 8. Nobody mentions Jonathan, which is kind of sad, but nobody mentions him. They mention him like in passing, but like Dio's everywhere. Like, Dio has carved out this niche for himself as just like the pinnacle of like JoJo villainy. And is he the best villain in JoJo? No. Absolutely fucking not. He's like probably like on the lower end of villains that I like. There are villains that legit creep me out. In the grand scheme of things, is Dio like the best villain? Absolutely fucking not. But he is pivotal to the story, like driving a whole bunch of other villains and like just like other people. You know what I mean? Yeah, like Dio is just... yeah, he's Dio. Yeah, so we have Jonathan, we have Dio, we have Irina. She kind of plays into that whole role of like being a girl in a shonen series, which means she's kind of reserved and kind of subdued and kind of I like the fact that she is very caring, but she could also cut a bitch if she wanted to, and I really like that in my female characters in any sort of show. So I'm giving Irina, I'll give her like a 7 out of 10. I originally gave her a 10 out of 10, but I'm giving her a 7 out of 10. We have Speedwagon, who is the internet's best waifu, and then we have Zeppeli. I have opinions about Speedwagon and Zeppeli that are gonna probably get me canceled on so many levels, but I love Speedwagon. Please understand that I love Speedwagon. Like, Speedwagon is great. I love his character design. I love his character, but Speedwagon, I originally ranked him as like a 15 out of 10 or like a 10 out of 10 or something like that, but Speedwagon is honestly more of like an 8 out of 10 for me. And that's solely because like in part 1, he does the thing in most anime, which is just sort of like providing commentary of like what's going on. Oh my god, Jonathan is doing this thing and I'm going to like comment on it. He's doing this thing and I'm gonna comment on it. That's a thing. Like, people do that in anime and manga, and like it has its place and it's fine. But like, I feel like people have like meme-ified Speedwagon so much, it's just kind of hard for me to like speak out saying like he's great, but at this point people are probably being like, what? How could you rank Speedwagon? Like, who could you possibly rank above Speedwagon? The person I'm ranking above Speedwagon is Zeppeli, and Zeppeli is a 10 out of 10 for me because he's more of a teacher to Jonathan. Like, I'm not saying that Speedwagon isn't important. Like, Speedwagon goes on to create the Speedwagon Foundation, which is like in every single arc, and he's very important. He creates a very important legacy. But with Zeppeli is the person who like teaches Jonathan how to use Hamon. Like, Hamon is important in part 1 and part 2, and then, you know, stands get introduced, and that's just like a whole other thing. I think I like Zeppeli more than Speedwagon because Zeppeli he's a teacher, he's wise, he kind of like understands the world, but he also has like this kind of like comedic side to him, and he also has this really, really awesome line that made me really happy when I first heard it. Courage is to look your fear in the eye and know that it has no dominion over you. And, you know, that is kind of like a standard, typical like anime action thing, but I don't know. I really liked that line. Yeah, Zeppeli is a 10 out of 10 for me. Out of all of the characters in part 1, like, Zeppeli is like by far my favorite. Like, he's great. So that is that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it, and I'm really sorry. Like I said, I love Speedwagon, but I love Zeppeli more. Part 1 as a whole, it's okay. It's okay. It's a good jumping off point. And I think Araki, the creator, mentioned in an interview that Jonathan kind of represented him as like a creator at that point, because like he didn't really know what direction I want to take with this, because it was created like in the 80s, and it was very in vogue to have just like, you know, the big muscular like character, and you know, Jonathan doesn't have a wide range of emotions like the other, like most of the Joe stars tend to have. And I think Super Eyepatch Wolf mentioned in his like why you should watch part 1 video, which I'm going to be linking in the description below, he said that the typical anime / manga guy in the 80s doesn't really show emotion. It's like when he's happy, he smiles. When he's upset, he punches somebody. And I'm like, okay, that's what's trendy, and that's what you're gonna write. So I feel like Jonathan deserved a lot better. I feel like he could have had a lot more character development if Araki continued to like develop him throughout like part 2 instead of introducing Joseph. Alright, so like I said before, I'm not gonna be ranking like the minor characters in this, and there aren't that many minor characters in part 1. So we have Jonathan, 6 out of 10, Dio, 7 out of 10, Arena, what did I say, like 6 out of 10? And then we have Speedwagon, who's an 8 out of 10, and Zeppeli, who's a 10 out of 10. So part 1 as like a series is like a whole, I'm giving it like a 6.5 out of 10, because everything has to start somewhere, and I feel like Araki was figuring out where he wanted to go as a creator and like finding his style while also staying true to like the trends in manga and like what was like selling at the time. Because in the, like I mentioned before, like in the 80s, like it was very, you know, Fist of the North Star especially was like, you know, really popular, and that was just like, you know, big beefy dudes. Like Araki knows his style, but he also knows trends, but he knows how to evolve as a creator while still being like true to himself. Like you can tell, like he has a very distinctive style, like the markings on the face, like the chiseled like cheekbones and stuff, like the full lips, like you can tell that he still has like the same like elements like in his work like throughout like his whole career as an artist and as a creator. And I really love like seeing his style like progress, because like it goes from like, you know, the standard 80s shonen manga, and it like right around like part 4 is when I started to like really get into the style, because like it softens up a little bit, but it still manages to be masculine and shonen. I think Super Eyepatch Wolf also mentioned this in his video, where, you know, you have like these big burly dudes in part 1, but they're also like doing like the very like, you know, feminine like fashion posing, and I really like that. I really love that juxtaposition where it's like you're taking something very, very masculine, but you're also making it like slightly, you know, feminine, because, you know, Araki is very influenced by like fashion and obviously very influenced by music and all that good stuff. And I really liked watching his like development as a creator, as somebody who's like just gotten into this and is just like absorbing all of it. It's just like, if I had like been into this, like I wouldn't have been into it like as it came out, because it came out like before I was born, but like if I was like watching this like style like develop without having like all of it available to me like right now, that would be so great. Anyway, but yeah, 6.5 out of 10 for part 1. Very much so like good versus evil dynamic with that added supernatural bit thrown in, which prevents it from being kind of meh. And yeah, Dio is a good villain, not my favorite, still good. Jonathan, he's fine. He wants to be friends. He's a good guy. Like, he's the good guy, but I feel like I kind of rushed through this ranking thing, but I also didn't want to ramble too much, because when I ramble about stuff, especially like now that I'm like really, really into JoJo, now that I'm like really into it, I want to ramble about it. And I kind of wanted to like rush through this, because, not like rush through it, but I kind of wanted to, you know, get this video recorded, because I really want to talk about part 2. I really want to talk about part 2. Part 3, I have my opinions on part 3, but I really just want to get to the point where I can talk about part 4 and part 5, because oh my god, part 4 and part 5 are so good. Okay, and I'm also, just random side note, I'm a basic bitch, and the opening song for this series is like one of my favorites. Like Bloody Stream is like my favorite of all time, because like I said, I'm a basic bitch, but I was like putting on my makeup today, and I'm like putting on my eyeshadow, and I had the OST, like, you know, the soundtrack like playing while I was doing it, and I'm just like, Sono chi no sarame JoJo, I love listening to like the soundtracks like while I'm getting ready because it just gets me all pumped up. Also, another thing I did not notice until I rewatched the series is that in the opening theme song, opening credits or whatever, you see Jonathan and then you see like manga panels of like all the other Jo stars, and I'm like, oh my god, like that's Jonathan, and that's Joseph, and that's Jotaro, and that's and that's Josuke, and that's Giorno, and that's Jolene, and oh my god, and it's like it's such a good little nod and to like the Joestar lineage. Like, it made me really, really happy, and I'm really glad that I caught that. So yes, I am very excited to talk about the rest of these parts, and it's really, really hard for me not to ramble. I love and appreciate every single one of you who take time out of your day to watch my videos. I hope you were having a wonderful day. I hope you were having a wonderful weekend, whatever part of the day or week you're watching this video at, and I will see you all in the next one, whenever that may be. Love you. Bye!